Hello, and welcome to our show for the love of animals. We have a real specialty for you. We're continuing on our show for animal lovers and quilt lovers. I'm Darleen Pigford.
And I'm Greg Baur, and want to remind our viewers of a couple of upcoming shows, one on Home Alone and another one on wildlife rehabilitation, so you want to stay tuned for that. But today we're continuing with part two, and Darleen, what do we have in store today?
Well, Greg, we'll first start off with this beautiful quilt, which does not belong to the Museum of the American Quilter Society. It is ours. Okay, this is my quilt and Greg's quilt. This one was made by the Yo-Yos, a group of ladies here in Paducah. We bought it at an auction of Project Hope, Positively Posh. This is hand quilted, hand embroidered.
Just an absolutely beautiful quilt. And we're going to meet the Yo-Yos in just a little bit, and they can tell you a little bit more about the kind of work that they do. But eat your hearts out, because this one is ours.
Yes. And the inspiration for this quilt, I think each of these cats, belongs to the Yo-Yos, and they told me the names of each. But it's called Kitty Capers, and it hangs at home in Greg's office. So, Greg, let's go meet the Yo-Yos.
I think that's a great idea.
And here we are at the Museum of the American Quilter Society with the Yo-Yos. The Yo-Yos are a group of ladies in Paducah who are master quilters and do some charitable work here in our community. Greg, why don't you introduce the group for us?
I'll be most happy to. So right here in front of me we have Virginia Hancock, and next to her we have Charlotte Roberts, then Pat Lewis, and Nita Manning down on the end, and unfortunately one of the members of the Yo-Yos, Carolyn Carver, was not able to be here today. So it's a group of 5 ladies that just love to quilt and having people enjoy it. So why don't we take a look at some of the things that they've done. Virginia, why don't we start down here with you?
Okay, I have a small quilt here that is, I think it belongs to Pat Lewis, and she made her own cat. This is Norman.
Ah.
That is her cat quilt.
Oh, how cute.
Okay. Let's move on. Charlotte?
I have a little quilt here that Carolyn Carver made for Pat, and the name of this quilt is Birthday Kitties.
Oh my.
Oh, how precious.
It sounds like everybody's making quilts for Pat, doesn't it? She's the cat lover of the group, I think.
I think we
Okay.
all are.
Yes.
This is Norman, and this is a different one than I've done before. It's done with wool.
Oh. How do you care for one that's made with wool?
Well, you don't wash it.
Right. Okay.
And Anita?
This is Happy Holidays. It's made by Carolyn Carver for Pat also. She knows Pat loves cats.
Ah.
Well, I see that we have many cat enthusiasts, but I do want the viewers to know that these ladies made a beautiful dog quilt for Project Hope last year, and it was a real award winner. These ladies make quilts that are donated to charity, and the work they do here at the Quilt Museum in our community is just priceless. So, Greg, we are just so fortunate to have these ladies here.
Oh, we certainly are, and we should also note that if our viewers get a chance to visit the museum here in Paducah anytime during the year, on Wednesday afternoons, I think this is correct, isn't it, ladies?
No, Wednesday from 9 till 4.
Wednesday
We're here
from
all
9
day
to
to
4.
4.
Oh, okay, thank you, Pat. They're always here in the lobby and willing to show you what they do and talk about their quilts and what inspires them. And over the years, Pat, let me ask you, what has been the major source of your inspirations? I'd like to maybe hear from all of you on that. What gets the idea flowing for a quilt?
Well, actually, the quilts we do here in the lobby are quilt tops that have been donated to the quilt auction, and then they're purchased for us to do the quilting on. So we don't piece the quilts.
Oh, okay.
In our own quilts, we just get ideas, and we just had a retreat and did some exciting things.
Okay. Is there always agreement among the group on what you should work on?
Well, yes, now like what Virginia's doing down there right now, we had not decided what we were going to do on the border of this quilt, and she was sitting down there this morning and figured out a way to do the border, and so we're delighted. This was a new thing this morning.
Okay. Well, I just can't believe that all 5 of you can agree on some things like this, particularly when it comes to the artwork that you do. But I think it's wonderful that you do it.
They all have a fine eye for quilt work, Greg.
Yes. And as I've watched them make some of the quilts in their demonstrations, Darleen, there's no way in the world I could begin to do the kind of detail work
Oh, I know, Greg.
and attention that they give to these quilts and the love that they give the quilts.
Exactly.
It's just wonderful, and we're so fortunate to have the Yo-Yos here with us in Paducah.
Like I said, we're looking at the master quilters.
Yes, exactly.
Well, you probably wonder where we got our name.
All
Well,
right. Tell us.
We're,
I think that's a good point.
yo-yos
Yes.
in more ways than one, but what we do is we demonstrate making yo-yos
Uh-huh.
for the scouts, for teachers, or anyone that wants to know how to make a yo-yo. So we always keep these on the quilt during our Wednesday mornings, and if someone comes by and wants to learn to make a yo-yo, we're happy to help them.
Well, and just very quickly, could you tell the viewers what is a yo-yo?
It's a little round piece of material
Okay.
that you do a little stitch around the edge, pull it up tight, and it ends up with just a little hole, and then we put it together. We make coverlets, we make pillow tops, we decorate shirts, or just anything that you want to.
We make cards for the gift shop.
Okay.
And this is what people many years ago used to, way they made quilts from all different kinds of fabric, right?
Absolutely. They didn't throw one scrap of material away, and you can make a yo-yo out of something big as a dime.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So you mean the yo-yo is not what I used to play with as a boy?
No, it's not wood.
Not what-
And the hat that you have on, what does that represent? Or is that just a shall we say, a kind of a trademark of yours, the hats that you wear?
Yeah, it's kind of a trademark. We always wear a hat because that we started in the beginning wearing hats, and so that's what people expect to see us with our hats.
It makes this
Virginia.
group even more distinctive.
It helps our Japanese friends recognize us at the quilt show, and they all do, and they want their picture made with us. We got lots of pictures in Japan.
Well, and we should note that you ladies have been featured with several articles in the Japanese Quilting magazine. Am I correct on that?
Actually, for the
years.
last 4 years.
The last 4 years.
And she's
Okay.
coming back this year, and so it'll be a 5th year.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, I think at this point then, we thank you ladies so much for being with us this afternoon and sharing your expertise and your thoughts. And I think it's time for us to take a break and tell our viewers how they can see this particular show and all of the shows for the love of animals. Hi, and welcome back to our show. As you know, if you've seen part one, we're taking a tour of the Museum of the American Quilter Society, and we just finished having the Yo-Yos, a group of local ladies here in Paducah who do a lot of quilting just for fun and for charity, and I hope you enjoyed the visit that they had. And as we were doing in part one, we're back on the tour with the museum, featuring quilts that have animal themes with them. And we'd like to reintroduce you to Judy Schwender, who is curator and registrar of the museum here. Judy?
Thank you for having me.
Well, we're so glad that you're back with us to continue the tour. And we've got a very special one here. Tell us about this one, Judy.
Oh, this is one of our very favorite quilts. And of course, children love all the quilts, but they really like this one. This is called Goto and Friends.
Okay.
This was made by Barbara Barber. And sometimes I really massacre that name, as you can well imagine. Barbara Barber, and she's from England. She's
Okay.
the champion machine quilter of England. And
Oh,
this quilt, the entire quilt was done on the machine.
Machine,
It's all
okay.
machine piece, machine appliqued, and machine quilted. And her husband helps her in her design process. He'll take a rough sketch of hers and refine it so that, you know, it works exactly and
Exactly.
everything fits.
geometric patterns.
Right. And what she's done here is she's really created a quilt around a goat that lived across the street from them.
Oh.
That, yes, Goto, right up
Goto,
there
okay.
in the upper right of the quilt. And
Okay.
Goto apparently seemed quite intelligent and always entertained them, so they would often take walks and go visit Goto.
Uh-huh.
And right before she was coming to the AQS show, Goto passed away. This was back in 95.
95, okay.
And he was the ripe old age of, well, for a goat, I guess, 14 and a
14,
half.
uh-huh.
So Goto was very special to them. But we also have, of course, we have a cat in the upper center. We have, and I'm not good at the distinction between donkeys and burros, but we have or mules. So we have one of those three here. We have a wonderful rabbit,
Rabbit.
a squirrel, a whippet with a really neat collar,
Wow.
nice bright red collar, a deer, and a fox.
Okay.
And
Goto and friends.
Goto and
And
friends.
his woodland friends.
And one of the things that is maybe not as evident at first is she not only did applique, which is laying on work,
Uh-huh.
she did reverse applique.
Okay.
Okay, and what reverse applique is, and you can see it in these petal-like forms here, is where the fabric is cut or slit, fabric is slid underneath, and then the top fabric's edges are turned under. So it's not
wow.
just laid on, it's turned under.
Reversed.
Reversed, exactly, reverse applique.
Wow.
So we have a real classical quilt. It's medallion format with a center and it kind of, if you will, expands from the center. But one of the other wonderful things about this quilt is the inscription, and it's quilted in. So up at the top, it says 1995, but right here it says, "He that is thy friend indeed, he will help you in your need." Goto and friends.
Oh, that's,
How
So this
precious.
is really
And
wonderful.
how true.
And how true.
yes.
How true.
So
And so that our viewers can get a little better idea of the size of this one, this is what,
83 by 83.
oh my heavens.
83 inches by 83 inches.
And it's just,
So-
and the imagination that went into
Imagine-
this quilt is just
oh.
fantastic.
Well, if you think about it, it's not usual that you would put a fox and a rabbit and a squirrel in the same proximity.
There,
Oh, but they're all, if you were in the woods though, you know.
That's true.
True. And you had an outdoor cat. I mean, I could easily see you would go for walks in the woods and you would see these animals.
Oh, yeah.
So-
and this was all inspired by a goat.
By
That,
a goat.
That is really
By
neat.
her walk in the woods with the goat and his friends.
Right.
So,
So in here we have all the woodland flowers, kind of imaginative woodland flowers. But this is bluebells, I think.
yes. Uh-huh.
Yes, so I think
Well,
it's
as an
just
amateur,
stunning.
what strikes me is the classical or traditional, and this is kind of modern,
Oh, yes.
you know, so, but they blend so well.
It's almost a Jacobean kind of
Yes.
design.
Uh-huh.
And of course, she's got the real bright colors that are contemporary.
Yes.
You know, because that real vivid turquoise and the real vivid blues over here. So,
Goto
Goto and Friends.
Goto and Friends.
Goto and Friends by
What
Barbara
a
Barber.
friendly quilt.
Yes, it is. Well, shall we go over and take a look at a bird?
Yes.
That sounds wonderful.
Let's move on. We're moving from goats to birds. Judy, tell us about this quilt.
This quilt is by Inga Mardahl, who lives in Europe, and it's called Sunbathing Blue Tit. One of the unique things about this quilt is that it is not appliqued or pieced.
Okay.
Inga's a nature photographer. She and her husband, Steen Haugs, do a lot of nature photography, and this was one of her images projected onto a piece of whole cloth.
Okay.
She then
Right.
sketched around the parts of the image that she wanted to capture. Then she goes back in and paints it with a brand of paint called Cetacolor.
Uh-huh.
And what you do is you paint it and then you set the color with a hot iron.
Interesting.
Then she goes back in and does machine quilting in these areas to define and highlight certain things. So for instance, the quilting here in the claws follows the line of the claws. The quilting in the feathers follows striations, I guess, of the feathers. And one of the things that amazes me is I have done both hand quilting and machine quilting, black thread on black, and the whole background is done like that in a stipple pattern.
Wow.
And I just don't have the ability to do that anymore. You have to have extremely good eyes to do that. But
That's amazing.
It has quite a texture.
it looks suede-like.
Yeah, it does.
It
yeah.
very much looks
You
suede-like.
can see it more here in the
green.
in the green, and it really gives it almost in the branch to me a 3D quality.
Oh, because of the shadowing down below.
The shadowing, yes.
Right. Well, one thing we're going to do is we're going to go around to the other side, and this is one of 2 quilts that we have in the museum where you can actually see the back side of the quilt.
So you mean on the other side of this quilt is an image?
Uh-huh.
I got to see this.
Okay,
Yes,
then
yes.
we better go over there and look at
All
it.
right, let's go to the other side of this quilt.
Well, here we are with the back of this quilt, Judy, and my heavens, I would not have believed that this back of the, not all quilts look like this on the back, do
Oh
they?
gosh, no. And what you're actually seeing is the quilting, the machine quilting. Of course, a quilt is comprised of 3 layers. You have your top, your
Right.
backing with a layer of batting in between.
Right.
And the quilting goes from the front to the back and forth from the front to the back.
Okay.
And the pattern that you're seeing on the back side of this quilt is solely created by the machine quilting that Inga did. The whole fabric on the back is a light blue, a solid light blue, and you have the white or the lighter blue where she had white thread, and kind of a greeny blue where she had the yellow thread, and then a little bit grayed here and there where she used black thread.
Okay.
And the neat thing about it is, to me, this looks like the birds in the mist in the morning. I could just picture
Yes.
it like on a cattail or something, and there's fog and the sun's just coming up. So I'm almost at the point where I like the back side of the quilt better than the front. So, and we do try to show the backs of some of the quilts. A lot of them, are not very interesting because it's
They're
heavily
not meant to be.
They're not meant to be.
Right.
The pattern, the fabric might be a very busy pattern.
Right.
But in this case, the back is definitely worth seeing.
Oh, that's,
So, in other words, so there's an artistic quality in the backing rather than just a functional one.
Exactly.
and
It is gorgeous.
It has to be done in such a way that the front coordinates with the back.
Well,
It does. And
yeah, you're right. So it looks good from both sides. And 2, if you think about either the front or the back, one of the things as far as the composition is the bird, which is the big thing in the overall composition, is completely on one side of the quilt. And yet it's looking across to the other side. So it's a very balanced composition in that respect, because the directions are all playing
Opposite.
off one another. Yes.
Is it safe to say that a very small percentage of the quilts would have this kind of an effect?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, most of them are a very formal composition with the focus in the center.
It just goes to show you what you can do with some imagination, doesn't it?
Oh yes. Oh yes.
what an inspiration from a bird.
That's very true.
Well, I think it's time for us to take a break now. We'd like to tell our viewers to be sure you get paper and pencil, and we're going to give you information about the museum here in Paducah, its hours and so on. And when you come to Paducah to visit, you'll have a chance to know when to come see things. So we'll be right back.
Welcome back. We're going to continue our discussion of animal-inspired quilts. Judy, we have horses again.
Oh yes, we can't ever be without horses here in Kentucky.
Yes.
This is a quilt by Charlotte Warren Anderson, and she's from Utah, and her father was a saddle maker.
Okay.
So she's has often been involved in drawing horses and using them for inspiration. This is called 3 for the Crown.
Okay.
Of course, referring to the Triple Crown.
Triple Crown, right.
So you have starts with the Kentucky Derby, And then it moves on to the Belmont Stakes, or no, excuse me, I'm bad, the Preakness. And then it finishes with the Belmont Stakes.
Right.
And I do believe that this is the dome and the tower at Churchill Downs.
Right.
And I'll
Yes,
be
I think it is.
I'll be
Yes.
honest with you, I don't know for sure what the other two, I'm assuming one is of the Preakness and one is at the racetrack at the other race. Anyway, this block is a Kentucky block.
All right.
There's a whole series of blocks that are designed and named for states,
States,
and that
huh.
happens to be the Kentucky block. So,
Okay. Appropriate there for the Kentucky Derby, I guess.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
definitely. And you know, the Triple Crown's been going on for over 100 years.
Uh-huh.
And quilting's been going on for a long, long time. So I think it's really, really neat that Charlotte Anderson married the two traditions, and we ended up with this fabulous quilt. And
Yes.
you know, Derby Day's coming up really soon.
Uh-huh.
And quite frankly, usually I am so swamped with getting ready for the American Quilter Society Quilt Show and Contest that this quilt doesn't make it up on the wall. And this year I said, that quilt's going up in March. So
Right.
I managed, this quilt's been up, and it's, now I don't have to think about it. I know it'll be up in time for the race.
Hand quilted or machine quilted or
This
both?
is hand quilted, and she did hand applique, and just there's some machine piecing in here, but you know, she just combined. She does what a lot of quilters do. Sometimes they use a hand technique, sometimes they use a machine technique. It just depends on, frankly, what kind of end result they want.
It has a really realistic effect here, and you know, in the buildings and everything.
Oh yeah,
And the horses, obviously.
the crowds in the
Yes.
grandstand here. These are just really. That's printed fabric. It's just
I know,
little
but-
dots on the fabric.
But
I'm
Yeah.
also amazed at the realistic detail of the flowers.
Oh yes.
yes,
She's just done a really, really good work.
yes.
We were talking about hearing the hoofbeats. Dun, 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 you know. So
Well,
we're all for horse racing here.
Absolutely.
We-
Beautiful, beautiful quilt.
We have another quilt with a dog on it.
All righty.
A little doggy.
We'll move on then.
Let's take a
Okay.
look at that one. Well, here's a quilt that has a dog in it. We've been featuring cats quite a bit today on quilts, but this one has a dog and looks like maybe a terrier mix. What can you tell us about this one, Judy?
Well, this is called Breeze, and this is by a lady named Rachel Wexler. And I'm not up on all the dog breeds. I can tell a basset hound from a dachshund. You know, I can do that. But I agree with you. I think this is a terrier mix, and it's sitting, of course, on its mistress's bed in the middle. And it looks like this dog has its own little throw. I see that a lot with dog owners.
Right.
You know, because the dog has to have its own little blankie, I guess.
Absolutely.
All right.
And the thing that's really fun about this is, you know, you have the dog, so that personalizes the bedroom. But we have a book whose pages are blowing in the breeze that's coming in through the window. The curtains are blowing, and then the curtains and the drapes around the bed are also blowing. So it's just a refreshing room.
Comfortable.
Comfortable, and you're just ready to go and visit your little dog and sit there and relax after a hard day.
And in kind of a Victorian setting, that's what it looks like.
Oh yes,
With
there's
all the
Traditional, yeah.
furniture, traditional, and
four-poster bed, lots of
Yes.
pillows, and a nice overstuffed chair.
Look
And-
at the detail. Look at that picture in the upper left-hand.
Oh yeah.
That's
It-
just,
And that's fabric. That's a whole piece of fabric, and
Oh, is it?
It looks like a painting.
yes,
Yeah.
it does. It looks like a painting.
Looks like a painting. So, I just think it's a very inviting. Oh, and
Oh, the rug.
and it has a little cup of tea here waiting.
Yeah, right.
So,
Look at the detail on that rug.
yeah.
That is just super.
And she's just angled everything so it's got a 3D effect, and as I
Yes.
said, it's very welcoming, and you're just ready to go set up shop. And you know,
Yes,
this is my room. I'll be here now. Thank you.
All right, now is this hand quilted or machine or
This is done on the machine.
machine quilted?
And machine applique. She's done a lot of what we call raw edge applique, where you don't turn the edges under, and it's not necessarily a finer technique, but she's done it so well that it is an extremely fine technique.
Well, the detail in this one is just gorgeous. It's
This one reason it won the best wall quilt at the 2007 AQS
Oh,
show.
it did?
Yes, it did.
okay.
And that's
Oh,
how it came
right.
into the collection. It was a Purchase Award winner.
Fantastic.
So we're
Yes.
happy to have it here and just come and look at this. And when the day gets just real frazzly, you just come out here and look at this quilt.
Enjoy the breeze.
Yes,
Yes.
enjoy
With
the
the window,
breeze.
with the windows open.
Yes, without any rain.
Without any rain.
Waiting for the doggie. So we have one more quilt.
Well, one more
Yes.
quilt, and we're going to go now from this one with a dog in it in the Victorian setting over to the organic garden, I
The
think you said.
organic garden, exactly right.
Well, here we are at the organic garden, Judy, and this is a fascinating looking quilt with all kinds of creatures on it. Tell us about this one.
Organic Garden was last year's hand workmanship award at the American Quilter Society Quilt Show and Contest. It's made by Bonnie Keller. And one of the things that we like about this is all the creatures are little. And really, when you go, like if you walk out into your own garden, you might not see something big like a fox or a goat
Right.
like we saw in Godot and Friends, but you will see moths and dragonflies and bees and cocoons and caterpillars and all kinds of little creatures. They say someone's, you know, your own backyard is always full
Right.
Yes.
of creatures. So,
Yes.
and Bonnie Keller, many quilters experience frustration in the process. And she had experienced a day full of frustration, so she went out to her garden and she said, I just stood there looking at my garden and thinking, and all of a sudden I felt something walk across my foot. and I just, you know, kind of froze because you never know what that's going to
What's
be.
going across your foot?
And she said, I held very still and I looked down and there was a little tiny mouse by my feet. So she said, the little mouse, I just stood there very quietly and the little mouse stood there and did whatever it is a little mouse does. And finally the little mouse left and the little mouse left a little treasure like
Reminder.
Reminder as mice will do. And so she included the mouse and his little reminder, thank you, that's a very good way to put that, on the quilt. So the little mouse made it into the quilt.
Oh,
So, and with the mice, and like I said, there's a little moth, and there's this wonderful salamander worked into the border. There's a swallowtail up at the very top center of the quilt.
it's gorgeous.
And like we say, you know, birders.
Uh-huh.
Birders will know more about that. I believe it's a swallowtail. And down at the bottom right, we've debated a little bit, is this a blackbird, is this a crow, or is this a raven?
Uh-huh.
And I believe it's a blackbird, only because I believe ravens or crows have kind of a bump on their bill.
I think you're right.
I know one lived in a tree, a raven lived in a tree across from my house in Lincoln, Nebraska, and always woke me up at dark 30 with "Gah, gah, gah." Was not very happy. But we have the caterpillar. There's a little cocoon by the caterpillar. And I think that's one nice thing that we all love about gardens and the creatures in the garden is that they all, you know, it comes back in the spring.
Yes.
And we here in
Yes.
Paducah are definitely ready for spring. You know, we're just real pleased with that. And the little bees, you know, honey and all kinds of little creatures. And it's got a wonderful, wonderful layout. It's a classic 4-block quilt.
Uh-huh.
So you have all this applique, and this is all done by hand. So she did a very classic swag border around the outside, and the festoon on the border is ruching. And
Okay.
that's a dressmaker technique, and there's ruching at the center of each of the 4 blocks.
Uh-huh.
And that's a 3-dimensional kind of gathered flower looking sort of thing. But Bonnie Keller's Organic Garden is definitely one of our favorite creature quilts.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
it is gorgeous. The detail is just fascinating. Well, Greg, I just can't believe time just runs out before we know it.
Yes, exactly. And Judy, we'd like to thank you so much for the time and effort that you've given to us for the tour of the museum, Quilters Museum here in Paducah, and showing us these particular quilts dealing with animals. But we know you have a lot of other quilts here also, and so the visitor would be sure to find something they would like.
But we certainly appreciate all about our animal-inspired quilts.
Yes, exactly.
So, in closing, I'm Darlene.
And I'm Greg, and want to tell our viewers again, give your pet a little extra love today and,
And every day. And visit the museum.
See you next time.
Bye.